Welcome to this week's episode of Canadian Mortgage Hangout TV. My name is Gordon McCallum. I'm the moderator of this thing we do every Thursday at 11 Mountain Standard Time, 1 Eastern. Welcome to, if you're watching for the first time, this is sort of a little chat we do about mortgage industry stuff. And we've been doing this for, what, a year and a half now? How long, Scott?
I think we're almost I gotta check, we're almost, I think, 2 years.
Yeah, I think we're almost 2 years.
2 years. Wow, time flies when you're having fun, eh, boys? As always, I'm joined with by Scott Dawson.
2 years, by the way, to interrupt. 2 years of our own time, our own budget, and our own goodwill. Just remember that to the judges who are voting for next week when we win. That's all I have to say. Go, Gordon.
And some of us paid for our own manners. I'm with Scott Dawson, as always, Jackson Middleton in Regina, Rob Campbell in Guelph, and we're joined, not for the first time, but for the first time in a while, by Gord Ross of Axiom Mortgage Solutions.
Oh,
it's not Gord, it's Mike. Mike Cameron. How are you, Mike?
that was a bit of a burn. That was a bit of a burn, but that's all right.
Gord's a friend of the show, too.
A friend of the show. I love it. Mike is, Gord. Mike is. I'm losing.
Mike is also a good friend of the show, and Mike's going to get a little bit more ribbing than Gary Morris and Colin Dreyer did, only because he's a friend of mine locally here. He's right here in Sherwood Park, in Edmonton area, surrounding Metro Edmonton. So welcome to the show, Mike. Good to have you again. How are things?
Things are well. Things are very well. We've got some sunshine finally, and getting to run outside for a change, which is kind of nice. So. Yeah, it's life is good.
On a down note, though, I do understand it's going to be a high of like 3 or something on Saturday and snowing.
You know what? Though the good news is, I'm in Vancouver on Saturday running the Vancouver half marathon. You're joining me, right, Scott?
Yeah, I'll meet you there.
Mike, I thought you said the good news was you look great in a tracksuit or one of those wetsuits, but hey.
You're still holding on to.
I am.
Still holding on to the wetsuit picture, are you?
That wetsuit picture on Facebook was wild. I'm like, he kind of looks really good, but I don't want to tell him. But hey, it is what it is.
I was actually going to save that question for the speed round, but are you planning to wear your wetsuit in the half marathon, even though there's no swim component?
I was thinking about it. It's about the only way I look that good. Holds everything together.
That would be so awesome. You know this is just a run, right? Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, right on. Well, guys, as always, for those following along, watching this live, we'd love to hear your questions for Mike Cameron or for anybody on the panel. You can follow along at hashtag CMHTV. That stands for Canadian Mortgage Hangout TV. And of course, you can watch this recorded if you don't have time to stay with us for the whole half hour today. Watch this at CanadianMortgageHangout.tv. And all the past episodes as well. There's getting to be quite a collection. We've had some excellent guests over the years and lots of fun chatting with them about mortgage industry stuff. And as always, there's lots to talk about. So I thought we'd start off with a few questions for Mike, and we can talk about some of the, we'll get through those and then talk a little bit about some of the more recent announcements, things like CMHC and that sort of thing. So Rob, why don't you take us away as soon as you're done chewing? And you had a question for Mike?
I do. Thanks, Mike, for joining us, and thanks to our 931 viewers that are watching us live. That's sarcasm font. Mike, first question for you, sir. I asked this of Gary and I asked this of Colin, and I would like your take on it. I'm a new agent, new in the business. I've just joined a mortgage brokerage under the Axiom name and brand. What should I do, Mike, for the first 90 days to make sure my feet hit the ground running?
Well, that could be a half-hour conversation in and of itself. First off, before we get started again, I want to thank you guys for having me on. I absolutely love this show, and I love when you guys give me the opportunity to come on. And I got to tell you, I think today we might have the viewer from the farthest away. I have it on good authority that Irina Antipova is watching from Turks and Caicos while she's on her vacation. She sent me an email this morning that said, so I want to give a quick shout out to Irina and hope you're enjoying the weather down in Turks and Caicos.
Irina, I have just a small bit of advice for you. Go back to your vacation. don't watch the show. We'll still be here in a week when you're back or whatever. Enjoy the beach.
Good stuff. So to answer your question, Rob, a new agent coming into the industry, what should they do in the first 90 days? Well, first off, I think what new agents need to understand, and we've talked about it a little bit, you guys know that I'm a runner, in fact, a triathlete, and there's a lot of parallels to this business with endurance sports, so marathons, half marathons, the Ironman, that kind of thing. So I think new agents need to understand first and foremost that this business is a marathon, not a sprint. And the sooner you sort of come to grips with that, the easier life becomes. I know I had some real frustration the first time I started, and to put it in perspective, I was putting together my biography for the CMP Summit coming up, and I realized that May of 2014 is actually my 20-year anniversary being licensed as a broker. So success doesn't happen overnight. So you need to understand that this business is a marathon and not a sprint. Second thing I would suggest is you need to get a mentor. You need to have somebody, a resource that you can connect with on a regular basis that can help you through some of the challenges that you're going to run into. Because let's face it, again, I talked about the fact that I've been doing this for 20 years. I still run into challenges that I don't know how to deal with. So for a new broker in the first 90 days, there is absolutely no question that they're going to run into some roadblocks, some hurdles. They're going to need some help. So make sure you've got a mentor. Secondly, I would say define your sales process. And you guys, I mean, I talked to a lot of you offline, and you understand that I'm a big believer in systems and processes, and I think that one is critical, and I think that's one that a lot of newer brokers don't necessarily understand, and they try and wing it. So they're out running around trying to generate new business, but they don't have a process in place for how to deal with that business once it comes in. So if you've got a defined sales process in place, that'll make life a whole lot easier as that business does come in. It'll allow you to tweak things as you go, pull out piece A, insert piece B, find what works, tweak it. And then the third thing that I think a lot of people forget about is you need to talk to people. You know, rather than sitting back, working on a website, coming up with brochures, coming up with this great marketing plan, I see a lot of newer brokers doing a lot of that kind of stuff, but they spend 90 days preparing. And while I do believe you need to prepare, I think you also need to allocate at least a portion of your day, even if it's just an hour a day, to talk to new people and tell them what you do. So whether that starts with your current circle of influence, or whether you're picking up the phone, and I know people hate the term cold call, but the reality is, if you want to do more business, you need to talk to more people. Even at this stage in my career, I try and make it a point of trying to talk to 2 or 3 new people every day. And you'll know, some of those out on Twitter know that, well, and Scott, I mean, I think the first time you and I met, when people follow me on Twitter or I have a reason to engage, they follow me on LinkedIn, I pick up the phone and I talk to them. Maybe something comes of it, maybe something doesn't, but at least it's a new connection. So I think that's a big piece that a lot of people forget about, is you need to be talking to new people. Does that give you an answer?
That's a great answer. I think you're right. I think it's easy to kind of get distracted by all the marketing things you need to do, and without realizing that sales and marketing are not the same thing. And sometimes just, like you said, talking to more people is going to have a more immediate impact. And once you build a pipeline and you've got a steady stream of that going on, then you can start to look at building a brand or doing some of those kinds of things. So
yeah, and again, I think if you schedule that, because as you say, it's easy to get busy being busy and forget about some of the fundamentals. So if you even just schedule an hour a day, 10 o'clock till 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to pick up the phone, I'm going to talk to some new people, whether it's people in my circle on my Facebook friend list that I haven't talked to in a long time. I'm going to reach out and touch base. Hey, how you doing? How are things going? Just want to let you know what's going on in my life. This is what I'm doing these days, and build off that. But schedule that contact time.
Go ahead, Rob.
No, that was a great answer, Mike. And I would, just to Cole's notes, 2 things. What you said, just to point out, it is a system. If you don't have a system in place, you're going to fail. And I've learned that first-handedly at the beginning. And if that system is the very least preparing mentally in your mind before your appointment, saying, John and Sally are coming in, they're sitting down, I'm going to introduce myself, talk about how we connected, and you step out, you process that, I was going to say interview, but let's be honest, that's kind of like what it is, right? But yeah, systems, always systems, key. And getting busy on stuff that you said, Mike, was a very valid point. Getting busy on stuff that doesn't matter. At the beginning, I would agree with you, Mike. What matters is talking to as many people as possible. Not necessarily shoving your business card down their throat, but engaging with as many people as humanly possible. Don't worry about the fancy letterheads. Don't worry about the websites. You got to ink some deals. And how you're going to do that is get to know as many people as possible. So good points, Mike. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and to clarify, I mean, when I say talk to people, you're right. I don't mean be that obnoxious car salesman, the Amway salesman. I mean, there is a fine line there. But it's just about reaching out and finding a reason to talk to people. So a lot of what we do in our marketing programs and things are look for ways that we can find reasons for our mortgage agents to talk to their customers. So whether it's rule changes, there's all kinds of different reasons we can get in front of different people, whether it's referral sources and clients. Just find those ways.
Now, Mike, as a triathlete, I can relate to that in some ways. I'm a tri-curious athlete. That means I've heard of all three sports, and I'd like to maybe try some of them sometime. But as a triathlete, a lot of discipline involved in training for those sports, right? You got to put, and if you do it 1 week and then kind of fall off for a couple weeks and then jump back in the pool, or just swim and you don't run and bike, like how successful are you going to be as a triathlete?
You're right. Consistency is key, and it's interesting that you bring that up because I'm actually using the triathlon analogy when I'm presenting at the CMP Summit next week. So not to steal too much of my thunder from there, but the three pieces of the puzzle there, and I always break this down to three things: are commitment. So if you're deciding you're going to do something like a triathlon, again, I did the Ironman distance triathlon in Penticton last year. Well, you got to commit to it. So again, this business, no difference. Once you're in, make sure you're in. And when I say committed, when I registered for the triathlon, didn't mean I was committed. I still could cancel. I could still back out. When I started telling people about it, hey, now I'm committed. Second thing you need coaching or training, right? For that, I needed to find somebody that had actually done that race before and figure out, well, how the hell do you do that? I mean, I couldn't swim 50 meters when I sort of started this journey of a 3.8 kilometer swim. So I needed to find somebody that had done it before and done it successfully and could tell me exactly what to do and when to do it. And then, as you say, the third thing you need is you actually need the discipline. Because it's one thing to be committed to it. It's another to know what you need to do. But the real money is in actually doing it and having that discipline.
Have any of you guys read The Compound Effect? Because I haven't, but I know it sounds a lot along the lines of that sort of an approach. I've got a good friend who's in another business, but he swears by it. He's trying to live by those principles and have a real disciplined approach to the date. You've read that, Mike?
Yeah, I think I've got it right here, actually.
That's Darren Hardy, isn't it? The editor of Success Magazine. Have you read it?
Yes, no.
That's not the current one I've got.
Okay.
No, I do not read.
Psycho-Cybernetics.
Okay.
But yeah, that one's The Compound Effect is an excellent book, and it just talks about doing the little things regularly.
That's something a new broker could also pick up, is to help guide them through that process of building discipline into their day. Because not every part of this business is knowing about mortgages, but a lot of it is building the discipline into finding those clients and structuring your day so that you've got a well-balanced pipeline. Scott, what did you want to talk to?
Yeah, let's switch that. Excellent suggestions for new brokers. But let's flip that to people that have maybe been in the business for a bit of time, that they're maybe hitting a spot in their business where they've come up to a certain level, they maybe plateaued. What kind of and obviously this business is always changing as we figure out. what are some changes that brokers are going to have to make, maybe starting in the next 5 years, in order to remain competitive and just to keep busy?
Well, I mean, again, for the established brokers, I think one of the challenges that established brokers run into is complacency, and that's always a bit of a risk. So making sure that you've got something in place. So again, for me, going back to sort of the athletics parallel, I've always got a race I'm training for, because if I don't have a race I'm training for, I just don't train. So I think, and the beauty of, not to always bring it back to the physical, but for me, the beauty of the physical stuff, the athletic training, is it is so tangible. So I can see that, you know what, hey, last month I couldn't swim 50 meters, this month I'm up to 100 meters, next month I'm doing 250, and on and on. So for existing brokers that want to grow their business, I mean, have a look at what you're doing. So understanding where you are, and I think that's it sounds like a no-brainer, but you know what, if I asked everyone out there watching, where are you exactly in your business today? What have you done year to date? Some would know, some wouldn't know. How many people have you talked to? So again, measure your success, monitor it, continually measure it, so you can see if what you're doing is working, and if it's not, tweak. The only thing that's inevitable in this business is change. So we need to be constantly reevaluating what we're doing and how we're doing it. And let's face it, I mean, some brokers are comfortable where they are, and they don't necessarily want to do a whole lot more. But if you do, and I challenge a couple of our brokers here who talk about, yeah, you know what, I want to do more this year than I did last year. So we sit down, and I have a quarterly meeting with some of them, and I ask them that question. Okay, you want to do more this year than what you did last year. So what are you doing differently this year than you did last year? And too many times the answer is nothing. I'm doing nothing differently. Okay, well, how do you expect a different result if you're doing the same things? So I think the answer is different for every broker, but the key is to monitor and evaluate and adjust and tweak.
Good stuff, thanks.
Yeah. Mike, Mortgage Summit's coming up, or actually Jackson, why don't you go ahead and ask him your question, and any happenings on the Twitter? I noticed Andy Weinshank is retweeting us. Thank you very much, Andrea. And of course, if you're following along again, follow us on Twitter, at SDD for Scott, at Kilted Broker for Jackson, at the Rob Campbell, and at Gordon McCallum for myself, and of course at Axiom Mike. We're on the hashtag CMHTV. If you have questions or would like to retweet any of this, we definitely appreciate the conversation. We don't just do this because we like to hear ourselves talk, although that's part of it. Jax, go ahead.
Well, Mike, I kind of, I get the opportunity to ask you about the future of our industry and the CMHC changes. Man, this whole second home thing, I mean, the self-employed thing is a can of worms in itself, but the second home thing is going to absolutely, in my opinion, destroy the mortgage broker's option to say, hey, buy a house, and in 2 years, when you've saved up down payment, turn it into a rental and move into something else. And you can buy that with 5% down. And it's CMHC allowing people one house. Is that going to kill our industry, or are the other insurers going to step up to the plate? What are your thoughts?
You know what? I don't think it's going to kill our industry. Again, the only thing inevitable is change. So one of the things, especially for newer brokers, I think you've got to be cautious of is sometimes you just got to plug your ears and close your eyes and put your head down and do your stuff. Yeah, does it have an impact? Absolutely, it has an impact. But you know what? The flip side of that, so let's talk about whether the other insurers are going to follow suit. And Canada Guarantee has come on record saying they're not going to follow suit. So the immediate impact, probably not huge. But the positive spin on that is if you've got a client that owns a principal residence, is buying a new principal residence, well, now he can't necessarily retain that as a rental property. He's got to sell it. So he still has options, but what that does is that now creates two transactions, not one.
Yeah.
So from a pool of available deals in the marketplace, in fact, that might actually increase the available pool of deals in the marketplace. So yeah, it'll limit options a little bit for our consumers, but I'm a glasses half full kind of guy, so I always look for the positive.
I suppose in a circumstance, Mike, maybe just for clarification for our viewers, one of the questions I had about this was that if a home was, as you know, if a home was insured originally by CMHC, and the client just kept paying, doing their renewals with the same institution, no new money, no refinances, no changes in title, that mortgage could be at 20% loan to value and still be considered a CMHC insured like NHA mortgage, correct?
Correct. Yeah, correct. That's my understanding. I'm actually waiting for some clarification.
So that part to me sounds like in a situation like that where they decided, I'm going to keep this place as a rental, buy another property, that there's a refi deal in that, because you're going to have to refi conventionally to discharge the insurer, and then you could probably proceed with. But is CMHC going to be a real stickler about like low ratio deals that are technically insured? I guess they probably could.
I mean, technically they could. I don't know that they will. My understanding is there is going to be some latitude as to what they do, and there will be cases for exceptions. So I would think that would be a perfect case for it. Like I said, I've got a call scheduled and hoping for some clarification on a few of those types of issues.
Yeah, because once you've established that as a conventional ratio deal, you can't refi above 80% anyway, right? So the risk to the insurer at that point goes way down. You got to think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, let's face it, that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to mitigate their risk.
Yeah.
The reality is if we have all these individuals that bought their principal residence and then 3-4 years later bought a new principal residence but kept that as a rental property, now potentially the insurer's got a portfolio of rental properties that they never counted on, their actuarials never counted on. So, all they're trying to do is mitigate their risk. And you're right, that does not increase their risk, that in fact decreases it. So I can't imagine them being all that sticky on that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, especially if the equity's there. Okay, that makes sense. Any follow-up questions on that, Jackson?
No, that sounded good. That was. I like your perspective, Mike, because you always take it and you look at it. Okay, how can this benefit us? Because the initial reaction is usually, "Whoa, this is going to wreck everything." But no, we got more chances for deals, and it's just. I actually like it because I think as people look for more information, they look to us as that. How. It allows us to provide good customer service, and it allows us to actually do our job. And I like that you kind of point that out. That we can actually be more effective and give our clients better information. That's perfect.
Yeah, well, this is exactly the kind of thing that I was talking about earlier. Talking to more people and finding reasons to talk to more people. So this is a perfect reason. There's going to be a ton of misinformation running around out there. So arm yourself with facts, like even B21. Some of the news reported that these are the new guidelines. Well, you know what? They're not the new guidelines. The new guidelines were released for consultation up until May 23rd. So if you're a broker and you know what you're talking about, and you can actually cite that they're taking feedback on these guidelines till May 23rd, I mean, now you come across as the professional. You actually know your stuff versus the broker that read 3 sentences in a news clip that said, these are the new insurer guidelines, we're all going to die. Again, it's one more way you can set yourself apart when you're talking to your clients, your referral sources, and it gives you a reason to talk to them.
Okay, well, while we're on the subject of new regulations and things like that, any comments on recent changes with CMHC, whether it's on the premiums going up? Do you see any kind of major impact on that, or is it just sort of business as usual and just slightly more expensive?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see that having a huge impact on our overall business. I mean, it's a necessary evil. You've got to do it. I don't see it keeping people out of the marketplace. I mean, they'll grumble and moan about paying a little bit more, but the reality is, I mean, we used to pay more. I can't remember when they reduced premiums, but it wasn't that long ago. It was within my career.
Well, yeah, no, they were higher than they are now. They were higher than they've gone back up to. So it's kind of a middle of the road kind of.
Yes, so I don't see that being a big issue. What B21 will do for us, and again, the positive spin of B21, is, well, twofold. One, it's not nearly as onerous as I think some people expected it might be. And two, it'll level the playing field across the board for any insured mortgage. So whether it's a credit union, a treasury branch, that kind of thing. So I got to think people in Winnipeg are loving this, because I know the credit unions were eating a lot of people's lunches for a long time. So this might have the effect of actually leveling the playing field for us as brokers a little bit, which might not be a bad thing.
One of us has an alarm going off, and I have a funny feeling it's my office. So if I have to run out with my hair on fire, that's why.
This is why you don't have hair, right?
This is why I don't have hair. I've been singed. I've been singed by all the regulation changes. Actually, it's kind of the going look on this show, Mike. I don't know if you noticed.
Well,
but,
I'm working on it. It's slowly starting to go back a little bit, but
if nothing else, we deserve the top internet presence that we're, just simply because of the stress in our lives that causes the hair loss.
Well, you should like put the CMH TV on the tops of your heads and do the bow.
Just like like the guy on the Canadian track team that blast off on it. Esme, wasn't it Robert Esme?
That would totally put a kink in my plans of getting a spider web tattooed on my head, but I'll do anything for the team.
Mike, one of the questions we've been asking the other guests on our show is kind of and we've had this conversation privately, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on the future of the industry in terms of building value into mortgage brokerages, building equity into these businesses. What do you think needs to happen? And maybe does it need to happen? I know Gord Ross and I have had this conversation. On one hand, you can make a great living and take all that cash and invest it in something that's going to create equity, maybe outside the industry, whether it's passive and stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, you name it.
Yeah.
And convert cash flow into equity that way, or is there a good reason to try to build equity in the business proper that's generating that cash flow, and what needs to happen for that to take place?
Yeah, I think absolutely that is critical. We always talk about building your own business as a broker, but the reality is, historically speaking, we haven't done that. We've created a stream of revenue while we're out selling, but very few of us have successfully built a business that has some longevity when we hang up our hat. So that's the trick. And for my money, in order to do that, that comes back to what I talked about at the beginning of the show, and that's processes and systems. So it's kind of twofold. If you've got a sales process and a system for A, generating leads, and B, working those existing clients, that becomes paramount. Tracking that. So if you're coming towards the end of your career and you're looking to sell your book of business, what do you have for assets? So you've got any, your phone number, website, any marketing programs, campaigns you've got, any referral relationships you've got, your actual database, but how do you quantify that? So for my money, if we can put systems in place and processes in place so that there's some consistency of how those referral sources, clients, are touched and communicated with, and we can actually document that, now as a potential purchaser, I actually have something tangible to go in and buy. Obviously you need to top that off. There's a component for the residual income, so the trailer fees, I think there's room for that. The insurance piece obviously needs to be part and parcel. But obviously this is a much bigger conversation. But by and large, again, I believe being able to tie in your client base to a process-driven sales-driven process, you can actually build some value around your book. It's challenging, but I think it's possible. And that's one of the things that we as a network are really working to try and help our brokers accomplish.
Fantastic. Now we're heading out to Toronto next week. Is the Mortgage Summit in Toronto, Ontario, and then the following day is the Canadian Mortgage Awards. I know we're going to see you there, Mike. And you're speaking at the summit, are you not?
Yes, I am.
What are you going to be speaking about?
I'm going to be talking about building tomorrow's business today. So
Okay.
a lot of it talks about some of the stuff we touched on, processes, systems. I'm going to give you some specifics in some of the processes and systems. Well, one specific process that I've used in my career that a lot of our agents are using to generate business, and actually have some takeaways from that. So
We're all going to be there. We're all going to be in the front row heckling during your.
awesome. I'm following the guy from Franklin Covey where he talks about trust and long-term relationships. So I'm really going to build off of that.
Well, we all know that social media is one of the best ways to build long-term, meaningful relationships. Is there a social media component to some of what you're talking about?
No, actually, there's not. Again, I focus more on the process.
Yeah.
And some, like I said, a specific process. So I'm actually going to share some very concrete takeaways with the audience.
So it's not really going to be speed dating for brokers. It's going to have a little more depth to it.
No, I hope to actually have some meat. I mean, one of the unique things about me in my sort of leadership position is that, you know, I have brokered for 20 years, and you know, I did a substantial amount of business at the peak. So I've lived this stuff. I breathed it. I've had years where I sucked, and I've had years where I've excelled. So I think I have a fairly unique perspective, and I hope to share that.
Looking forward to it. Now, Mike, are you prepared for speed round? And if the answer is no, too bad.
Well, I thought that was the whole point of speed round. Don't be prepared. So
That's right. You can't prepare. I'm not prepared. I'm pretty sure none of us are prepared for speed round. So I'm gonna give the guys 5 seconds to prepare mentally the question they're gonna ask. And I'm gonna go left to right, starting with Scott.
Oh. Well, I was going to touch on the wetsuit as well, because I remember seeing that picture that Jackson likes so much. But do you have a wetsuit in the office?
if I did, I would never admit it.
So that's a yes. Thank you.
Are you wearing a wetsuit right now?
Well, no. Now you got my local Twitter followers asking for picture proof.
Picture it didn't happen. Yep. That's a fact.
So, well, you know what? I can Jackson, grab that picture and retweet it for me.
I'll find it. Yes, I'm gonna do that. I'm looking right now.
Come on, I know it's your screensaver, Jax.
Yeah, right, eh? Mike, Cameron.
Mike, if you, when you're interviewing new broker owners to become part of the Axiom family, do you or do you not have them try on a wetsuit in your office in front of you?
Not in front of me. I give them privacy.
Give them privacy. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We're getting real. If there's a line, we're getting real close to it.
Okay, guys, here we go. Tweets going out. It's gonna say CMHTV wetsuit Mike at Axiom Mike. Hashtags XEB.
So Mike, we're gonna send you. We're gonna get you a CMHTV mug. We can expect a mugshot, right?
Absolutely.
And you know what it means by asking that.
My question for Mike is: do you have either or pec or calf implants? And do they help your performance in the triathlon?
No, they just weigh you down.
You know. Okay. All right.
I actually had my pecs reduced.
Wow. There you go. Just to let you guys know, there is a picture on my Twitter of Mike in a wetsuit. I did throw out the please retweet, so let's make that happen. Everyone on CMHC.
Is it on the hashtag?
Oh, it should. I don't know why I wouldn't have used it.
Before I drop out here, fellas, because I'm on Phantom Power, little Tragically Hip reference with my laptop. So if I do drop out, I really look forward to seeing all of you next week in Toronto for the CMP Summit and then the award show the night after. And if anybody's out there watching this now or in the next week, please, if you see one of us, leave us alone. No, come and say hi.
Privacy for crying out loud. The life of a celebrity, hey? No, come and see us. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. We're probably going to do the show live from the whatever conference center we're at in Toronto near the airport. And we're going to probably put somebody from KMI Media on the spot and ask them why they have the conference at the airport and then the awards downtown, so that we have to go to 2 different hotels. Because they did it last year, and I gave them heck last year, and they did it again. So we're going to have to put somebody on the spot and make them a little uncomfortable. But otherwise, it's going to be a fun time.
That sounds good. I know I'm moving hotels.
Yeah. We're looking forward to seeing you guys, and thanks a lot, Mike. We appreciate the comments you made, and of course the leadership that you're showing in our industry, and looking forward to hearing you speak in Toronto.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, Mike. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.